This article from Magnetic Magazine, I thought this was a really, really good article for if you're just starting out, or if you're in the early stages of your music career. It's written by this Will Vance guy. Very well written. But the title is The 7 Biggest Downsides to Being a Music Producer and What I Think You Should Do About It. He says, producing music is the best feeling in the world. It's being a music producer that sucks. This is mostly a joke, but the silver of the truth that makes it hit so close to home that there must be some reason why most music producers never make it in the music industry, right? For all glitz and glamour and simplicity, then everyone who claims to be a music producer would be a professional one. Yes. But the harsh reality is that there is a ton of downsides of being a music producer, many of which make incredibly talented and would-be artists abandon their goals of going big, or worse yet, ever starting at all. So instead of listing out the lamest parts of the gig in a meme style carousel calling it a day, I want to go a little deeper and break down the 7 biggest downsides. There's negatives and positives. Number 1, you don't get paid. Today's streaming revenues are often disappointingly low, especially after record labels and distributors take their cut. As a result, the music itself generates very little income, something I went in on last week. And that's just today's climate. It's not like I like it. It's not like that's the way I want it to be, but that's just how it is. Anyways, I'm not here to get into that again. Okay, one of the challenges of being an aspiring or even professional music producer is the limited financial compensation, especially during the first decade or more of their career. This situation varies by genre, but generally it can take years of hard work in the studio before artists see a small paycheck from beat sales, music licensing, and other sources. Achieving a full financial support through music alone often requires a considerable amount of time and persistence. Yeah, I've been doing this for over 12 years, and the thing that I've made the most money on is shows and merch sales, I guess. The streaming, when you release a song with a record label or something, that opens the doors for brand recognition because you're getting the stamp of Flux Pavilion's record label, Steve Aoki's record label, Skrillex's record label, whatever. Whereas if you're releasing music all on your own, that's great. Theoretically, you're going to see more revenue, but you're not going to get nearly as much reach because all the consumers are going to the labels. They're going through things like Spotify. They're going through big playlists that labels make with their own catalogs, right? I view label releases as opportunity generators, not necessarily an end-all be-all to making money, right? But let's say last year I put out an EP on Circus Records. I had a song with Flodan, Josh Rubin, a couple other features. The amount of money that I put into that EP, visuals, features, all that stuff, I might just be breaking even on that, just solely on shows alone. Maybe it generated a few $100 in streaming revenue, which is great. That's fine. But if you're trying to get yourself out there, get more exposure, find new fans, it's almost like an investment of your time and money to get your music out there, and your shows will be booked. I don't like that. I wish the 250,000 streams, 1 million streams that my 2 projects have gotten over the years would pay me more per stream, but it's just not the case, right? So you have to use that disadvantage in a way that creates opportunities for you. It's just part of the game, right? How I've dealt with this. While music itself often pays very little, especially early on, entrepreneurial and industrious music producers can find auxiliary income streams by leveraging their skills, network, and resources. Okay, on this thought here, right? Yes, you can be a music producer doing your own project, but there's so many other ways through that to make music, right? You can sell beats. You can mix and master. I've done beat selling, mix and mastering. I've recorded podcasts. I've recorded audiobooks. I've done like actual bands, recorded bands, being a recording engineer, mix and mastered their whole thing, right? There's so many other avenues of opportunities that this skill set specifically provides. All of that is in pursuit of what you truly want to do, doing really well, right? But if you're trying to make a living off of just making music, you should take every opportunity to make money doing that anytime you can. And that's just like my objective advice. If you know how to make a hip hop beat and someone wants to pay you $500 to make them a beat, make the beat. And use that money to reinvest into your project or pay rent or whatever it is. Paying rent is part of that as well. I feel like people narrow down this conversation into making music, releasing music, getting shows, when it's like you could make so many more connections by utilizing your skills in all the degrees possible rather than just focused on one little tiny niche lane of EDM or hip hop or whatever, right? Like if you can be the guy, be the guy. Okay, anyways, continuing. Although I could elaborate on this topic extensively and have done so in various articles, most comprehensive resource, I've created a recent ebook. Okay, he's promoting his book. Transitioning from a talented hobbyist to an entry-level professional is often the toughest part of a music career. So he says, it's convoluted almost by design. I've been producing music and work in the industry for a decade. In many aspects, I still feel like I'm in the entry phase of my career. While I'm comfortable discussing a wide range of topics, it wasn't until about a week ago that I truly grasped the complexities of publishing, administration, and the intricate splits involved. The nuances of various revenue streams and royalty payouts alone can be daunting. And this is another big thing, is like understanding how to get paid on your music is just as important as your music being good enough to get paid for. Let's say your goal is to get synced on a commercial or put on a movie trailer. These gigantic networks won't even give you the time of day if you don't have your publishing info ready to go. If you don't know what BMI is, or you're not set up with a BMI or ASCAP type organization that allows you to be credited and paid for the work that you've done and allow them to legally pay you, they're not going to explain to someone when they have a giant pool of music that's just as good as yours, and the dude next to you has all his stuff figured out, your song may be better, but it's less work for them to go with the guy next to you. That was something I learned kind of the hard way in the beginning, but ultimately it didn't like cost me an opportunity or anything. I was grateful to have someone who explained that to me, but I later learned that the movie studios, right, or music supervisors, I call them stupid music visors, the people who put music into film and into commercials and TV shows and all that stuff, they don't even give you the time of day, no matter how much they like your song, if you don't have that back end stuff figured out. So spend time registering for BMI. If you got to start an LLC, make it easy for these people to pay you when they do find you. So how I've dealt with this. The best way I've learned to deal with this, and the best advice I can give to other music producers, is to be mindful and do your due diligence of learning the industry's business side. I found it crucial to consume a wide range of advice on different aspects of the music industry while working through the initial and early stages of my career. As I mentioned earlier, the early stages of a career can last many, many years. I said many twice, because that's true. So there's plenty of time to learn the ins and outs of the stuff in the background. During these early stages, the stakes are incredibly low. My royalty and publishing payouts have often just been pennies or a few dollars, so it hasn't been a big deal if I've made mistakes or let things slip through the cracks. As I've progressed, the checks have gotten bigger. The importance of being knowledgeable has increased. The last thing I want to miss out is a few $100 or even $1,000 checks because I didn't do my due diligence in registering for the correct publishing or understanding the basics of the business. This is why figuring it out, just getting it all locked down, you get your BMI or your ASCAP, member number that never changes ever. And so that way, when you do get an incredible opportunity, you've got the professional means to get paid for that opportunity. I'm not saying you need to be an expert in every aspect of the music industry. It's far too convoluted for that. But knowing a little about how the industry moves can help you make informed decisions and ensure you cover all your bases. So I've made it a priority to learn early while the stakes and payouts are low, so I have a solid grasp on the essentials when it really counts. Okay, another topic here. Nobody cares. Except for fellow music producers, whether it's in your community or online spaces, most people don't really understand what you're doing when you're in your bedroom or music studio with the door closed making music. The disconnect tends to get worse over time. At first, friends and those close to you might humor you and share your excitement when you talk about your initial beats and the thrill of starting music production. However, as your knowledge grows and your obsession with music production intensifies, the technical aspects become too specialized for most people to follow. Yeah, this is big. Explaining, like when I met my wife and explaining what I do, I think it took her probably 6 months, 8 months. I don't know, babe, you can chime in here, how long it took you to really get a grip on what it is that I do and how it works and the amount of time and love that I have for what I do here, making music and teaching people how to make music and things like that. It's very hard to boil down into one sentence. When people are like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, okay, here we go, right? But you have to boil it down as best as you can. And when I first started making music, my friends, I was in my college dorm, like people were hype, really supporting me, going to my shows and stuff. But like as I got better, I spent more time doing it because I got more into it. Thus kind of not necessarily that we were any less friends or anything, but like I was really, really enjoying what I was doing. So I spent more time doing that. I mean, that's when you're obsessed with it, it's easier. I don't want to say it's easier to become good, but you sure get good a lot quicker when you're obsessed with it. The big divide came from like, okay, what am I doing with my life, right? Am I doing this part-time, or am I really trying to get this project off the ground? And I'm going to elaborate on that probably after this article, but I'm going to continue with what he says. As I got more into the details of things like the differences between digital and analog compression, the clever use of stereo field, and techniques for layering sounds, it became too technical for most people to grasp. I noticed not only did my friends struggle to understand what I was talking about, but their interest often waned as the discussion got more detailed and niche. Yeah. If you're a producer, you ever start talking about side chaining and mono versus stereo, right? And growl basses and waveforms and sine waves, and you start getting into that real technical aspect, people just kind of give you one of these, So the more detailed you get with your knowledge, the harder it is to kind of relate with someone who's like not in touch with that. My wife says she's still trying to figure it out. Yes, thank you for loving me and sticking around. I love you. He says, how I've dealt with this. The best piece of advice I can give you is to take whatever excitement, interest, and compliments your friends can offer, soak up all the positive feedback, and enjoy the recognition they're giving you. Yeah, anyone who gives you love, anyone who shows you like support in any kind of way, thank you. Just tell them thank you, because they don't have to do that. I feel like people overlook, they're like, with their attitude, right? They overlook it with their attitude, like, yeah, I've been doing all this, blah, blah, blah. But like any piece of support that people show you, just overextend yourself, because it creates a moment of engagement with someone who will probably want to like stay in touch with what you're doing, rather than just like, yeah, man, I told him his music was great and he just like kept talking. It's like, no, you want to connect with people and keep them coming back for more. People attach themselves to growth, not necessarily quality, although that does help, right? I have people that have been following me since 2012, 2013, since I've been doing the Mad Hatter project, and scrap that project. People still like, oh, I knew you when you were Mad Hatter. It's like, okay, you're an OG, but it doesn't make a difference. It could be that person or a brand new person. I'm going to give those people the same amount of time and gratitude for being there. So always, I really highly agree with what he's saying here. As you learn more about music production, you often just realize how much there still is to learn to be as good as the artist you look up to. But your friends usually don't know that. They're just excited that you're making music and thrilled about your latest beat. They're hyping you up and having nothing but good things to say. Like, yes, take that in, soak that in. Take pride in those moments. Since there isn't much money in the initial years of producing music, it's important to appreciate the praise and support from those around you. Consider that a win if your friends are excited and enjoy your new track. It certainly was for me, and I encourage you to see it similarly. Yeah, definitely just always show gratitude, always be grateful, because the person that you show that gratitude to could be the label head, could be some movie producer, could be some rapper that blows up down the road, and like they remember the interaction that they had with you was one of appreciation, and it was an awesome interaction. It wasn't something that left a bad taste in their mouth, right? You never know who you're coming into contact with. And I learned this at drum major camp in high school, where we were like learn how to conduct the band and stuff. Manny Maldonado, the leader of that program, Sassy, he said, you'll never know the true extent of your influence. And that is something that that's a bell that was rang in my head that has not been unrung, nor will it ever be, because every interaction I have with people, again, you don't know what kind of day they're having, who they are, what they could or couldn't do for you. So just assume the best, right? And like treat everyone with respect, treat everyone with love, because again, you really don't know how far that interaction goes. Not only for what they could do for you, but what you're doing for them. It's not all about what you're doing. It's also about the impact you have on people. He says here, loud mouths eat. And then he says fast food in parentheses here. The music industry has its fair share of braggarts and big personalities. Often these individuals experience quick wins in the early stages of their careers. For instance, an outspoken clout chaser might be securing opening gigs for bigger artists at local nightclubs. One thing I really struggle with, especially when I was doing the Mad Hatter project, is that I would be making music that would get signed to labels, but these like frat kids from UT would get these gigantic opportunities because they have a huge reach or something. And I'd be like ghost producing their music or teaching them how to DJ the week before their gig or something. It's like, bro, It's just part of it. But you know what I did? I took advantage of that opportunity, and I made a little bit of money, right? And that's what it's about, is using the skills you have to make money, and don't just learn all this stuff to do one thing, right? This can be particularly discouraging for more introverted producers who consciously focus on honing in their craft and achieving a professional production level before sharing their music with the world. Over time, this disparity can feel disheartening, but quick wins don't always lead to lasting and sustainable careers. Agreed. How I've dealt with this. The most crucial piece of advice I can offer throughout this entire article is that music must speak for itself. It always does. While quick wins like a local opener DJ gig promoting smaller parties can be fun, exciting, and have value in their own right, in the short term, your music will ultimately be your calling card and resume in the music industry. Being a good producer will pay off significantly in the long run. So yeah, I mean, that's like, again, what game are you playing? That was something I struggled with in my previous project, where I was playing every local show that I could get on, and I was getting every single, opportunity, after party, opening slot, direct support, whatever it was. I was taking everything thrown at me and not focusing on what I truly wanted was my music to get out there. And so, yes, I got very connected very quickly, but I think the quality of what I was doing and why I was doing it went down because of that, because my priorities were not quite aligned, right? And so it's good to take the good opportunities and get the content and all that stuff, but don't make that what you revolve your decision making around, and that's something that took me years to wrap my head around, is that you don't need to be the guy in every single room in one city. You want to be the guy in rooms across the country, and you do that by creating your calling card and building your resume via becoming a better producer, like he's saying here, right? Here, yeah, this is a good one. He said, there's a lot on your plate. I've heard countless times that music producers today need to wear many hats, and while it might sound like a cliche, it's undeniably true. It's something I elaborated on last week as well. Modern music producers have a ton on their plate to build a successful career. They often find themselves running social media, promoting their music, acting as mixing engineers, writing songs, networking and being social butterflies, the constant need to post content every day, stay on top of emails, send out promo material, build an email list, engage with social media, stay ahead of social media trends. Not only do you have to be a songwriter, you got to be a sound designer, you got to be a mixing engineer, you've got to be a mastering engineer. Depending on the kind of music you're creating, you got to be a recording engineer and understand sound recording. You've got to understand social media. You've got to edit videos. You've got to understand how to promote and market your music. There's so many different things. I really could go on this all day. But what I'm getting at is I feel like what it takes to launch a successful brand is highly underestimated these days. It's a lot to deal with. And not that it's a bad thing. It's just if you really want to make it in this industry, these are things you got to have a conversation with yourself and be like, do I really want to do that? And if you love producing music and you love creating moments at shows and connecting with people through music, then that's not even a question. It's not even a big deal. The industry is fickle. The music industry is highly unpredictable, with trends shifting seemingly overnight. This volatility can be especially stressful as you progress in your career and become more established in a specific sound, niche, or genre. Recently, I was talking to a close producer friend who's one of the biggest names in the melodic house scene, a mega star on a top label. As we drove to the airport, he shared his concerns about the potential shifts in genre popularity. He wondered what would happen if the genre's popularity suddenly declined, leaving him at the peak of his gigs but with a dwindling audience. The fear is well-founded, as so much of producers' draw and revenue comes from people paying to see them perform or purchase their music, which might be evoked for only a brief period. The rapid changes in what is popular and a significant source of stress and sleepless nights. The industry's harsh reality highlights the uncertainty and the constant pressure that music producers face in maintaining relevance and success in today's fast-paced music landscape. I feel like this article ties in with everything that I've talked about already today. Yeah, and so this is a long article. I will link this in the description of the video once it gets posted. But this is a very, very good article written by Will Vance. I highly recommend going to read the rest of it because it's really informational if you're looking for just like small tidbits of advice to get your project off the ground. A lot of these are things that I've taught people over the years, but it's not like you can like take all this stuff in a course and then just go apply it like an accounting degree or something. Like, you got to get the XP points to understand how to apply that knowledge.